On today's show, a Minnesota legacy 100 years in the making.
This is a picture of me.
This family is part of the story. We take a walk in the state park alongside Minnesota's bison herd. And hold on, these riders know how to hit their targets. It's the challenge of mounted archery.
Minnesota Bound, presented by Connecticut Water Treatment Systems.
Hi everybody, Bill, Millie and I welcome you to Minnesota Bound.
You know, Cass Lake's Norway Beach Resort just hit a major milestone, 100 years in business.
And that's exactly why my dad, Ron Shera, traveled north to celebrate with a family that's been part of the resort for nearly its entire existence.
This summertime story is about, well, what a Minnesota summer is all about. A week's stay at a lakeside resort. Fun on the water. A little fishing.
I'll get the bow mount ready.
What do we got?
Yeah, it's a little perch. Really little.
Good food and one more moment. A family reunion to rekindle relations. To remember old photos and restore memories young and old.
Who do you recognize there initially?
Well, of course, my in-laws, my father-in-law and mother-in-law. This is a picture of me and my husband, Jerry.
Is that you too?
Yeah, but I'm pregnant with David.
Oh.
This is Adeline and Elmer.
The couple that found this place.
Found this place? Norway Beach Resort? Yes, in 1933, Adeline and Elmer Meldal from Findlay, North Dakota. They are gone now, but they've left behind a family tree with many branches, plus an annual summertime tradition, a Meldal family reunion. How many? The number is 90. 90.
I don't even have to ask. They say, we'll see you next year. It's amazing. I'm blessed with the amount of families that just want to be back here every year.
Norway Beach itself has a long history, on the banks of Cass Lake for 101 years with many owners.
I am 18 on the list.
Serious?
Seriously. I think it's important for the younger generation to go out and explore. I built a playhouse for the kids, high-speed internet, so we've got the necessary things, that a resort needs to have nowadays.
When the Meldal families arrive, they occupy the entire resort, 11 cabins.
We love this resort and the lake, this part of the lake, and it wouldn't be the same place if it were all new fancy cabins. This is where we sit and relax and joke and have fun. Family has always been a top priority for me.
The family's matriarch is Lila Meldal, who journeyed from Montana to attend.
I'm the oldest one.
And that age is?
92.
Her memories remain too.
We just came for a weekend, and that was my first time at Cass Lake. I think it would have been 54. I remember that my mother-in-law, who kept the house spotless and meals perfect, and I would sneak out and sit on the beach as much as I could. Just very good memories. I feel so fortunate to be a part of this family.
Once or twice during the week's day, the families gather to share food and drink.
So I make cowboy stew. Swedish meatballs, Grandma's recipe.
And this is the potatoes to go with and the gravy's coming.
All right, let us pray.
We're so fortunate. We're so blessed.
Not only for this special place.
I always think it's kind of holy ground or sacred ground.
Indeed, for 9 decades, coming to Norway Beach has been a sacred tradition for the Meldal family tree.
I'm the youngest of Elmer and Adeline's children. I'm 77. I attribute it to my dad and mom. I mean, I think that they instilled that in all of the kids, that not just their children, but their grandchildren, that this is a special place.
Will the annual tradition go on? 11-year-old Weston Lee explains.
The first time I was here, it was dark because I was in my mom's stomach. Eventually, I'm gonna have kids, and then I can see my kids be here, be as happy as I will.
Until next year.
Minnesota Bound is brought to you by Connecticut Water Treatment Systems, Star Bank, White Bear Lake Superstore, and by Your Boat Club.
Up next, we travel to southwestern Minnesota to visit a state park with really unique attributes. Sioux quartzite rock and prickly pear cactus are just a start.
Blue Mountain State Park is in southwestern Minnesota. We're about 15 miles to South Dakota and about 30 to Iowa. Blue Mounds was originally founded in 1937 as Mound Spring Recreation Area. This was a corner of the state that didn't have any natural lakes, so the Works Progress Administration under Franklin Roosevelt dedicated this site as a national park site and actually built 2 dams on Mound Creek to provide water recreation initially. In 1960, a prairie came up for sale just kind of across the way from the creek. 50 acres of land, and the city of Laverne nearby actually petitioned St. Paul to buy that acreage and start a bison herd. It certainly is a landscape that supports bison. In 1961, bison were very, very rare, and so the opportunity to grow a herd was pretty exciting. So that was the start of Blue Mountain State Park in 1961.
My name is Tiffany. I am one of the naturalists, and I'm going to be your tour guide. Let's start with our truck, our ride. We affectionately call it the Bison Buggy, our prairie tour vehicle.
It's a Ford F-350. 12 people can ride on the truck, and it's about an hour-and-a-half ride out into the bison range.
Let's get this show on the road.
It's actually a dual-fuel truck. Runs on both gasoline and propane, and when we have people in it, we run it on propane. It protects the riders in the back of the truck from having to smell those emissions for an hour and a half. But as a whole, it's a cleaner burning fuel, so it's doing our part to reduce that carbon footprint. Part of the reason the prairie here was protected over the years from agriculture is that this bedrock sticks up here and is incredibly hard to farm. On the east side of the park, there's a 90-foot cliff of solid quartzite. It's over 2 billion years old, and it's actually the remains of an ancient river that snaked its way across Minnesota and South Dakota and Iowa.
What color do you see in the rock? Red, primarily reddish pink or even purple. So if the rock is red, what's up with blue mounds? That's the question everybody has. Where did blue mounds come from? Look what else is on the rock. Lichens, which is an algae and a fungi. And from a distance, they kind of cast this bluish hue. You know, when those first European immigrants were making their way across the landscape, they saw this bluish looking mound that looked very different from everything else that they were seeing, which was basically just prairie grasses and wildflowers at that point. So it very much became this landmark. And in 1961, we actually changed our name to Blue Mountain State Park to kind of pay homage to that incredible cliffline and the rock. That is the whole reason we get to have them here today, because it truly did save the prairie. But this is our herd. They have a whopping 534 acres to roam wherever they choose.
Started with 3 bison from Fort Niobrara National Wildlife Refuge, and it's grown now to a herd of over 100. Usually we'll have 25 to 30 calves born each year.
Only about 30,000 or so are being raised as conservation animals, right? Like our herd here at Blue Mounds. And we really do think of them as a conservation partner in managing the prairie.
Of note, Blue Mounds just added a tracked wheelchair which you can reserve for those who desire a little help to explore the back trails.
Still ahead, the story of a storied Minnesota artist. But first, these riders are right on target.
Closed captioning provided by Radco Truck Accessories.
A sport that's thousands of years old is new again. It involves drawing an arrow and hitting a target at a very high speed. As they say, sooner or later, everything that is old is new again. A new club has arrived in Minnesota participating in a historic activity that's thousands of years old.
Tonight we're going to start working in the lanes. We're going to start shooting. We can gather up our arrows and our bows, and each one of us can get to a target.
This isn't your average archery club. It's archery with a horse as your teammate. Mounted archery appeared for the first time during the Iron Age, a few thousand years ago, around 1200 BC. Back then, the skill was used for hunting, protecting livestock, and of course, battle. Today, it's an international, fast-growing sport.
Mounted archery is just simply that. It's the combination of riding and shooting at the same time. There's a lot of different styles of mounted archery. I was just looking for something different to do. I've had horses most of my life, I've shot bows most of my life, and I really just wanted to have something else to do with my time.
These modern-day warriors love to test ancient skills with their new club called Crow River Mounted Archery, a branch of the Mounted Archery Association of the Americas.
Obviously, we're a new club, we're just starting out, and MA3 focuses more on lane shooting like this, where you have a row of targets and a lane that you're running down.
Walk before you run is the name of the game with mounted archery. In fact, you start out horseless.
We can go through and start walking through the lane pretending that we're going to be on horseback and start shooting as we walk. Next, we're going to practice at a trot, except we're going to do it on our own 2 feet. So we're going to kind of jog down the lane, aim at your target, and shoot.
Trotting your way to accuracy before mounting up is key, because the combination of riding a horse, drawing an arrow, and accurately shooting a recurve bow is quite difficult.
You got a lot more on your mind when you're on a horse and moving. A lot of it is just learning how to be accurate. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't expect it to be as hard as it was coming in. I'm used to drawing back all the way to my ear, and I had to change that all up, starting with a recurve. My fingers took a lot of getting used to pulling on a string and get callous really quick.
Not only is there a learning curve for the student, but also for the horse.
When you're just shooting, you want to have your horse close by so they get used to the sound.
Start with, kind of waving arrows in front of the horses' faces, or we'll toss arrows over their head just to get them used to seeing things moving past them. And we also help people work with their horses to get them used to it.
An ancient sport that anyone and any horse can do.
Breed of horse doesn't matter. Clothing doesn't matter. Anybody and everybody can do this. If you don't have any of the equipment, you don't have a horse, you just want to come check it out, you're more than welcome to. Just contact us and come check it out.
A modern-day warrior, the combination of horse, rider, and bow.
no longer needed for battle. Instead, its purpose is pure bliss.
It's a rush and it's fun. I look forward to building up to the speed. Again, with us being new, we're not there yet, but I look forward to that.
Minnesota Bound is brought to you by Game Fair. Visit Brainerd. And by Totem Resorts, the premier destination for world-class fishing.
Up next, our Minnesota Bound Classic takes us back almost 2 decades.
Yeah, to the day Ron Shera shared a day in the studio with legendary artist Jim Killan.
Among America's finest wildlife artists, there's a tall Minnesotan with a frock of white hair that gives credence to his longevity. His name, Jim Killan.
I think my favorite painting is a winter scene with Canada geese in an old barn in a cornfield, a corn stubble, you know. I love to do that type of thing. Or a couple mallards drifting into a winter marsh.
For more than 3 decades, Killen has captured on canvas everything from moments in nature to the joy in hunting dogs.
Thank you for all you've done for the ducks and for DU.
While the art of Jim Killen has many admirers, the real Jim Killen story is about an artist who's become, to those who know him, a treasured original.
Jim's history of donation to Ducks Unlimited goes back 30 years. Overall, by the way, Jim's paintings have brought over $10 million for conservation to Ducks Unlimited, an amazing feat.
This guy can capture a dog like no one I've ever seen.
Jim is very dedicated to conservation, to his family, to his work.
Wow, what a beautiful day.
He's an absolute gentleman. He appreciates conservation and how necessary it is for us to support conservation efforts.
Jim Killen has always practiced what he paints. A longtime resident of Owatonna, Minnesota, the artist and his wife Karen have created their own nature reality show.
We bought the initial 40 acres in 1974, and we have added to this, so we have 160 acres here, and then we have 120 acres south of Owatonna. Entire 160 is all for wildlife, as well as 120 for conservation, for wildlife. And we have 2 ponds here. We have 2 food plots with the 30,000 trees we planted.
We both love the out of doors. We love what God has created, and we hate to see man change it so much that even, you know, the waterfowl or the upland game birds can't live where they were intended to live. But like our property here, we hope to preserve it.
While Maple Creek Marsh will become one Jim Killen legacy, clearly his wildlife artwork will be another.
I've never been in the art business to make money. I love to do it. It's part of my psyche, to the need to do it, and I'm still doing it every day, and I get kind of out of whack if I can't go up and paint, you know, so.
Yet despite his decades of success in so many artistic ways, Killen remains uncomfortable with the idea of fame.
Well, I don't know if I am famous, but thank you. But I think I probably shouldn't have said that.
But in this scene, fame found Jim Killen.
Jim and Karen have probably contributed to hundreds of thousands of acres of wetlands work in North America.
He's the epitome of a conservationist and a gentleman. Aside from that, of course, a fantastic artist.
And to think the original Jim Killen happened by accident.
I was working at Jostens as a design director, but I noticed the success that the wildlife artists were having, and I thought, well, I think I could do that.
And a master painting came to be.
Jim Killen passed away this year back in January.
Yeah, he leaves behind both his artistic and also conservation legacies.
That's right, he was 89 years old. Well, that about does it for us. We hope to see you back here next week.
In the meantime, Millie, what do we always say? No, no answer. Remember to introduce the kid to the great outdoors.
Transportation provided by Premier Transportation. Call 1-800-899-7433.